Joining me now, Mark Serrano, Jillian, Melchior, and Cardenas. Mark Serrano, let me go to you first. Obviously we know the heat of the battle, a lot of things are said and done. Is there anything at this particular point that's off limits? Because in my mind, ultimately, this could hurt either one of the candidates in a general election.
No, nothing's off the table, Charles. Anything's fair game at this point. And really the objective is media time. How much of the media time can you absorb? Donald Trump is the world's expert on absorbing most of the media time. Ted Cruz is trying to compete with him for media time, but nobody can come close to Donald Trump. He's a maestro. He's done it for 40 years, and he'll continue to do it with this race. And really, there's no issue. There's no, nothing that's sacrosanct at this point in the race because, you're fighting for America. You're fighting for the cause. You're fighting for your own campaign. So, frankly, it's the way politics gets, and after it's done, we become a party again.
Al, you're the former Florida Republican Party chairman. I thought there were some rules to engagement. I thought wives and children were off limits. Perhaps they're not. But, to Dr. Ben Carson's point, what about these real serious issues that face the world? Do we get a chance to address that a little bit more?
Boy, what a great question. Listen, it's not just Republicans that are watching your show, Democrats and independents too, and they're making up their minds who they want to vote for in the general election. And so someone like me is just as concerned about winning the general election as to who's going to be our nominee. And this course, like we just heard a little while ago, doesn't help the cause, doesn't help the brand, and frankly doesn't help the country. I mean, we're in the aftermath of Brussels. We've got a world crisis on our hands, and we've got to deal with this lack of civility and personal issues being brought to the fore. There's no way that Democrats and independents are going to consider favorably our nominee if this keeps going on. So stay away from that stuff. Dr. Carson makes some good comments. I echo those. I think we got to stay at the forefront of the top issues and get some civility and behavior modification here before it's too late.
I think what they used to say in Rome, they crossed the Rubicon, though, Jillian. So maybe not this election cycle. We're not going to see that. But what do you make of the notion that perhaps this will hurt either Donald Trump or Ted Cruz in a general election?
Well, I think it's certainly going to hurt both of them. We've seen this sort of gutter politics the entire way out. And Donald Trump has really set the tone with a lot of the things that he's done. Now, with this Heidi Cruz thing, what I think is really unfortunate about it, she is a formidable woman. Donald Trump doesn't have a wife who looks like that because
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, she's an older woman, but she got in a photo that was a little bit awkward. But Donald Trump has a history of divorcing women as soon as they're a little bit older. And I think that's not really a fair comparison. If we're talking about character, I think the tone is one thing. I think his
history of divorce.
But you're not
dissing Melania, are you? I mean, I mean, you are. You don't think she would be a great first lady?
I haven't looked that much at her record. I do think, though, that if you have a man who can't even keep his promise to his wife, I doubt him as a president. I think that's a character issue.
Mark Serrano, I know that you like Donald Trump. He's the guy that you're rooting for in this whole thing, and you've been around this, so you're probably more accustomed to it. And maybe we're just shocked. Maybe this is how elections have always gone. It doesn't necessarily feel like that, but is there a chance of someone saying, "Hey, I'll be the bigger guy"? Because we saw when Marco Rubio tried to play this game, it wasn't fit for him, and it sunk his ship even faster than it was already sinking.
Charles, Republicans have suffered, this legacy of political correctness because they have kowtowed and cowered to the news media. And, reactions from people and not wanting to upset, the independents. What Trump has accomplished is, the beginning of the defeat of political correctness. If he's successful in this election, he's going to be very successful in defeating political correctness. That's what's at the core of this thing. In the media and the mainstream media, what are they talking about? Well, whether it's appropriate to talk about someone's wife or not, ultimately, this is a fight against the news media, who is effectively the largest super PAC for the Democrats.
But
so that's really how I look at it.
Between political civility and political correctness.
Is there a difference, Mark?
Well, look, do the math. Yeah. Donald Trump right now has 40% of the electorate in a general election. If he wants to be nominated, if he wants to be a successful general election candidate, he's got to add a lot of folks to the equation of folks who support him. And I agree.
Take a look at the exit polls.
Welcome the new folks he's brought into the party, but he's got to add, not subtract.
Guys,
and he's got to show that he's a kind of candidate everyone can support.
Look, I want to bring it. Hold on one second, because we've got Katrina Pierson on the phone. We were trying to get her with us on the air. But Katrina, it's great to have you any way we can get you.
Yeah, hi, Charles.
Hi. You know, this back and forth now, Donald Trump retweeting the photograph of Melania and Heidi Cruz. Is there a place where this will stop? Is there some sort of limit where all the candidates can sort of get refocused on the issues at hand?
Well, I think you should probably ask that question to the anti-Trump people. I mean, I just heard one of your panelists talk about the difference between civility and correctness, and I got to tell you, the founding fathers weren't very nice to each other either. But more importantly, if you guys think the Democrats are going to be politically civil, you have another thing coming. And I just want to remind everyone on this panel that from the beginning, Donald Trump denounced super PACs, and he asked all the other campaigns to do the same. And he told them that if you do not denounce these super PACs, we will take all of these attacks that they launch against me and hold your campaign directly accountable. That's exactly what he did. Heidi Cruz is not the victim here. Melania Trump is the victim here, and everyone seems to leave that off the table.
Well, there's no doubt that this Ted Cruz, this super PAC that is associated, or once Ted Cruz and when launched this latest salvo, listen, last night on the show I said it was despicable and I thought Ted Cruz should have been stronger and disavowing it. But having said that, Katrina, these other guys are saying, we're not billionaires. How do we play in a game where you need to spend hundreds, if not billions of dollars to make it to the White House?
Well, it's very simple. Campaign. Talk about what you want to do and who you are, but they're not campaigning on that. They're campaigning against Trump. Trump doesn't have a super PAC, and he's managing to get his message out. He's managing to have all these events and rallies talking about his vision. But his vision is different than the other candidates. That's their struggle. It's not the free media attention that Donald Trump is getting. It's his message. It's his policies. It's his position on a lot of things that Americans are upset about tonight.
Jillian,
Charles,
hold on one second. Hold on one second, buddy. Jillian. Having said that, I mean, every time I go back and I read about these different historical elections, it was nasty stuff. I mean, you know, you call it gutter politics, but it feels like this is not necessarily new. We always feel like things are new because it's happening in our time, but it's not necessarily new. What do you make of the notion that Mark said, hey, if the candidates aren't tough enough to tough this out now, how can they deal with Hillary and Bill in the general election?
Well, I do think that's going to be bruising as well, particularly because if it is Trump as a candidate, he has so many vulnerabilities and he has received such favorable treatment by the media. With the PAC thing, I want to get back to that because just a couple of days ago I was reading about how a pro-Trump PAC just did $1 million ad buy. I was reading earlier today about how, you know, if you look back last fall, a pro-Trump PAC had to dissolve because it was looking a little bit too cozy with the Trump campaign. So I don't think that's entirely true.
Right. Although we know Donald Trump has spent the least of all the candidates so far.